What's up, guys? Mr. W here again with our online social group. So we've been talking about things changing and how we react to that change. So today we are going to talk about what's inside our control and outside of our control. And this is important because it plays into change. So we're going to go ahead and look over at this beautiful drawing I've made. Alright, so we're looking at this little drawing I've made of inside our control and outside of our control. So as you can see in the middle here, we have our beautiful hand-drawn Mr. W with his long, can't get his hair cut quarantine hair, looking fabulous, and he's ready to decide what is in his control and what is not in his control. So the first thing, that's how this is going to work, we are going to open it up and see we have a thing. We have weather. So we have to think, is weather inside of our control or outside of our control? Well, unless you've got some kind of crazy superpower, weather is not in most people's control. So I cannot decide, you know what, I want it to rain today, and it starts raining. So weather is not inside of my control, it's on the outside of my circle. So everything inside the circle is what I can control, everything outside I cannot. So let's look at the next one. How I treat others. That's absolutely inside of my control. I can decide how I want to treat other people. We're going to make it a little smaller and stick it next to that cute little Mr. W. Alright, let's look at the next one. Substitute teacher. Can I control whether or not I have a substitute teacher? Although we might drive our teacher a little bit crazy, no, it is not in our control whether or not we have a substitute teacher. So we do not get to decide whether or not we have a sub that day, and we don't get to decide who our sub is. So those are two ways that substitute teacher is outside of our control. What about how hard you try? Absolutely, how hard you try is inside of your own control. You can decide, I really want to try and understand this and do well, or you can say, you know what, today I'm just not feeling it, and you can put in a lesser effort. Now, we have talked about that sometimes when we don't try our hardest, there is consequences, but it is absolutely inside of our control. What about our attitude? Although a lot of factors go into our attitude, and I don't just mean when our parents say, man, you've got an attitude, or I don't like your attitude. Attitude can be positive and negative. Attitude is just how you approach things. So we absolutely can change our own attitude. Sometimes that can be really difficult given circumstances, but we are still ultimately in control of our own attitude. What about when someone gets sick? So definitely we can help when someone gets sick. We can help prevent people getting sick, but ultimately we cannot control if somebody gets sick. You can't just walk up to someone and say, you're sick, and then all of a sudden they're sick. It just doesn't work like that. And we also can't control, maybe your mom or dad, sister, brother, family member is not feeling well. You can't just walk up and say, oh, no longer sick, and then they feel better. So that's something outside of our control. When something changes. So this has been our big talk lately, is about change. And we've talked about different ways change can be positive and negative, but ultimately the fact of change is outside of our control. We definitely can change. We definitely have control of whether or not change, is something that we can deal with or not deal with. But change is not something we can change, or that we can control, I should say. It's not something we can control. So if we go to school one day and we have an assembly and we really don't want to go, that's a change in our schedule, but we can't just say, nope, I don't want to have an assembly, no assembly, and make that happen. So change is going to happen no matter what, whether you want it to or not, and therefore it is outside of your control. But then the big part of it is how we fix a problem. That is in our control. So whether our problems from change or not, we can control what we do to fix that problem. So when we have change, we are absolutely in control of how we respond to that change and what actions we take. So if we think about just change in general, let's go ahead and get these guys out of the way. So let's just think about when something changes. So just when something changes. We have 4 things here that are inside of our control that really apply to when something changes. So something has changed. We have control though of how hard we try. So we can control how hard we try to fix the problem. If something changes, we can control how we treat others because of the problem. So if something changes and we're frustrated, we don't have to take that out on other people. We have control of that. On that same topic, we have control of our own attitude. So even if change is negative, we can look for positives. We can control our mindset of whether or not we take this and let it stop us. If we let it, get us down, if we let it get in our way of growing as a person, we can control that. We can control how we respond and how we fix the problem. So we can control the steps we take once something changes. All right, so I've got a couple questions for you, as I do every other time. I have, we'll say 3 questions. This is the point where you can put it in the comments, respond in Google Classroom, or talk about it with somebody near you. But the first question I want to ask you is, when have you experienced something that was inside of your control? So what is something that you've experienced that you could control? When is a time that you've experienced something out of your control? So when is a time that you've experienced something you had no control over? And the last question I want to ask you is, how do you think you respond to things that are out of your control? And what I mean by that is, do you think you respond well when things are out of your control? Or do you think you have a hard time responding to things that are out of your control? And you know what? It's perfectly okay to be honest and say, you know what? I'm not very good at that yet. But that's what we're working on and that's what we're building towards. So thank you guys for watching my video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the little stick figure me and enjoyed the video. If you are in my Google Classroom, make sure you get that stuff submitted. If you are not in my Google Classroom, thank you so much for watching my video, and hopefully I will see you guys next time.